My name is Nawal Ammar, and I am presently the Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Rowan University, but I'm also a professor of criminology. I actually came to the United States in 1982 to do a PhD and leave. I wanted to go back home. And my PhD was in anthropology. I finished my PhD and decided to go work. I got attracted to collaborative research. Most anthropologists actually do only field observations or participant observation. I was very interested in being an advocate with the community. So I worked in Hartford, Connecticut, actually for a few years with a very big think tank run by an anthropologist. And we did a lot of collaborative research. And then I decided that was it. I'm going back to university. So I got a position at Kent State and was hired in a justice studies department and as the comparativist because I'm an anthropologist. And so my research during that time, I received a phone call from a very famous historian of religion at the University of Victoria. And he said, I want you to come, we have a conference, and we want you to talk a little bit about Islam and the environment. I've never done, I've done a lot of, Islam was a very big component of my research because I studied Muslim women. And I've done some stuff on environment, but Islam and the environment was like, oops, okay. And he insisted, I said, I know nothing, I don't know. And he said, no, I want you to come. So I spent actually 3 or 4 months doing research. And eventually I ended up in Whistler, British Columbia, which is a really interesting place. You have to go up the mountain in a bus, and you have to cross a lake and so on. And we got there, and that was my first experience with presenting on Islam and the environment. I continued doing this work quite a bit for a while. So I would say from 1995 till 2005, maybe 2006, I wrote one article. But meanwhile, I felt like there was not, and it was mostly from a feminist perspective. And when I say feminist, it was basically the inclusion of women in the discussion. It's not, and that's important because you say feminist, people think of all sorts of radical things. It is radical in Islam to include women in those discussions. It has been so far, even today, was quite radical in one of our discussions. So I've constantly talked about that. Then I stopped. And I did research on battered immigrant women for a long time, both in the United States and Canada. But every time you do something like that, Islam intervenes because there's a large population of Muslim women who get abused and who you can't access unless you are a Muslim yourself or you can talk to them in their language. So I worked with police officers on these issues, and I did a research on that. And then finally I discovered another population of Muslims who are oppressed and those who are in prison. So I have done quite a bit of work on Muslims in American and Canadian prisons. I finished a book a couple of years ago on that. And then the circle comes around again, and I get people asking me to write more about Islam and the environment from a different perspective, from a policy perspective, from a cultural perspective. So I have done quite a bit in the last, 2017, I'm finishing one now. And so the journey continues. I haven't focused on Islam and the environment or the environment only. For me, that's part of the justice work that I do, unlike other people who have done nothing but that. So. I think the conference, I was just commenting on the fact that it has been a very safe space. We've all been able to say what we want to say. So it's it's exceptional in that way when you have so many people who otherwise would be fighting with each other, maybe killing each other even, to create a safe space. It's a general, it's part of my faith, I guess, in what I do. I am an agitator in a way because I have to bring in a topic that a lot of people rather not discuss it, or have settled it in their head that they are, pro-women, and they are, when they really are not. So it will get heated when people start talking about women choose to do things when they don't in a patriarchy. A lot of women do things not because they choose to, but because they have no other option. And so somebody has to speak on their behalf. And as a result, as an advocate of victims, you're often faced with people who think they know more than you do. And I've learned my issue is not to make other people feel that they don't understand. I just throw the idea, I'm an educator, I can't do more than that. And I'm not an advocate in the sense of, I advocate through knowledge, not through combat. And so throwing the idea is important. It stays in the air. People start thinking about it. Some people talk about it. So I think that's part of what I do. And so today, I think I did what I wanted to do from the very beginning, which is throw the ideas and have them become controversial. It's fine. I think the only way we can preserve the environment is to eliminate some of the evils that cause either overconsumption or desertification, what else? Oppression of women, oppression of natives. The only way we could do that is to create equity in society. And then we can talk. I can't go and tell somebody who can't eat that they can't consume. It makes no sense. I can't tell somebody who is spending so much money that they are spending so much money. I need to talk about, what about your brother who is next door or who is in a different country? They can't eat, they don't have food. So I think the issue of, unless we address issues of economic justice, of status justice, of war, and have a peace that is built on justice and equity and inclusion, I don't think the environmental issue is ever going to be resolved. So that's how I see it. And I've written quite a bit about this in terms of the idea, for example, of oppressing women is very related to the oppression of the environment, which is the ecofeminist perspective. You look at countries that oppress women the most, they have the worst environmental indicators. It's as simple as that. So it is, and the same thing, countries that lack democracies have the worst consumption rates that are really, they have high carbon footprints. And so to me, if you look at the justice issues, you will understand how environmental degradation happens. Environment and criminal justice is very much a human rights issue. It's a human rights issue in the sense that we are building in the United States specifically. We have built prisons on burial lands of indigenous people. And it's happened in a way that is very secretive. So they discover burial grounds and they don't tell us and they don't care. So there are groups that actually go after people who are building prisons, whether they're private or public, to see what they're doing with the land. And so to me, that is a crime, right? And it is connected to criminal justice when we build prisons, but it is a crime and it is a justice issue. We need to be fair to the indigenous population that we've taken over their land and enjoy their country and ignore them. At least we should respect their dead. Many Native communities are willing to take the bones and bury their dead somewhere else It's as simple as that. Many of them are willing to do that because for them the earth is open, it's not territorial. So that's one. The other issue of environment and criminology has to do a lot with war and civil wars. Uganda has some real issues with, again, we discover these huge burial grounds and we have no idea what's going on. We bring anthropologists to figure out who's dead and who's not dead. And that has a lot to do with crime and the environment. So that's what I've taught that course, but I have not really written about it. But there are big experts in criminology that are doing this now. There are 2 or 3 of them actually in the United States. There are multi-levels of engaging women. I mean, so, and each, as I say, her own. Whatever your strength is, you engage with. So I'm not a community worker, although I do collaborative research. I have never been a community worker, but I work with the community. There's a big difference. So I do engage women at the level of research. I am not, a fly-by researcher. So when I work with women, I connect with them, I continue to talk with them, we share the information with them, we ask them about the policies they want to see. But I think my most powerful engagement is as an educator. I mean, I actually do engage with women students and men students on the issues of women. And it sometimes is controversial. I teach, for example, women in crime. I taught women in crime for a long time. And the first year or 2, I had no men in the classroom. It was all women. And then eventually men started coming. And it makes the class more interesting. It allows us to get a different perspective. And it allows us to address the issues, because we can't address issues of feminism or women's empowerment with women alone. Men need to be included, men need to be converted to it. And we need to work together. So that's how I engage. I engage by teaching. I teach a course on women in Islam. I haven't taught it for a while, but I also teach women in crime. And every course I teach, I feminize. Whether it's interviewing, how to interview in the criminal justice system. You interview women differently from the way at least women who are under the criminal justice system, differently from the way you interview men. So that's how I engage women. And of course, I engage women in my writing a lot. So that's how I engage. But I think we all have a role in to play in engaging women. And I can't be a community worker. I'd be lying to people. But I educate community workers. And so that's how I engage women and men. It's been an amazing conference. I've been to many of these conferences. Mostly practitioners are forgotten. We don't have them, and if they come to do symbolic things. We pray with them, or we go to their communities, but we don't give them a platform to speak. And this conference has given some of the best talks I heard. Some of the most emotionally engaging for me were about the Jordan River. I mean, it's very, I still have to process it. It hasn't been totally processed. And today we talked about the Nile as well, and that requires some processing for me. So the practitioners have been wonderful. And what happens when you bring practitioners is the academics become more logical, their language becomes more accessible, and the way of communicating becomes more practical and down to earth, because academics sometimes can become really full of hot air, as I say. And so that's really what happened. I saw that happen. how this is going to change. I'm in the process of writing basically something about environment and Islam and the future. And I've gotten to a point where I could not move. So what's next? So this is, Islam is an environmentally affirming religion, but look what happened. And so I gave all the data about all sorts of things. And so the question that this conference has been asking is a question that I ask in my paper. So what is this divide between what the theology says and what the practice says? And why are we here? So I think part of what I heard today, specifically from some of the people I really admire, like Fazlun Khalid, he's really amazing. He is amazing. So I think part of what I got is I know now exactly where I'm going with my conclusion. So it's helping me individually, but I think it's also helping me in terms of, I think the next piece of research I want to do is going to have to be something with practitioners. I want to talk to the practitioners, and while they write and they do things, they don't make their work accessible to everybody. So I think that's what I want to do. It is so energizing and such a affirming thing for me to see that there is a second or a next generation that's even better than any of us. Their work is really fantastic. The questions they're asking are wonderful, and their approach is just really innovative and inspiring.